Welcome to Starfleet Universe On Call. I am Paul Franz, owner of Franz Games, of an SFU Online, FedCom Online, and Starfleet Warlord. Just reminder how to do this. We talk every Thursday starting 9:30 p.m. Eastern Time. You can either call on the phone system at 605-562-0444. Just follow the directions. Call ID is 17702. Or you can participate on the web. Just go to the Talks website, www.talkshoe.com, search for call ID 17702, or search for SFU On Call or Starfleet Universe On Call. But if you want the best online experience, you need to go to twitch.tv. Yes, that is twitch.tv. Twitch.tv/SFU On Call. And you will find us there. You'll be able to join the wonderful chat room and join us for this live to tape, if you know what that means, podcast. And of course, if you need to contact me for any reason, my email address is sfuoncall@gmail.com. That's sfuoncall@gmail.com. Also, you can follow me on Twitter while it still exists, and it's SFU On Call also. And my personal account is Franz Games. Sorry, it's Paul Franz, PAULFRANZ, and of course, lastly but not leastly is Franz Games, my business account. So if you want to follow me there, that is fine. I haven't been posting much. Well, I rarely post anything, so except for usually SFU On Call, and I've been slacking on that. But moving onward, and this lovely Talkcast gets into podcasts available on iTunes and various other feeds around the net. Some quick news from ADV this week, and that is the Federation Commander Gunboat's Attack is now available in PDF form only. The hard copy is still not available, and so it looks like it won't be available probably until next year. And of course, the normal e-tailers for Starfleet Universe products are, of course, Warehouse 23. As you notice, they've moved to Shopify as their platform. Also, when it comes to, you have of course, Wargame Vault and Drive-Thru RPG. So, also, ADB has announced that due to ship card and counters rising in cost, that Federation Commander products will also, their prices will also increase in the future. They have not announced how much so, but given that Steve Cole, the Post was quoting that ship cards went up 10 times the amount, and the counters went up 3 times the amount, I can imagine that it's going to go up quite a bit. Because I doubt that the cards that would cost them $1 a piece previously, and then be $10 now. My assumption is that it was like 10 cents before, and now it's $1. That kind of thing. But still, that's cost that he's gonna have to add onto the product, because he can't sell FedCom anymore at the same price. The current price has been there since, as mentioned, since the year 2005. So it's been that way for almost 18 years. I'm not sure exactly when 2005, so it could be 17, it could be 18 years. So you get the picture. Well, moving on to the SFU Online tournament stuff. Sapphire Star 13 signups are still open. We have, to my knowledge, we have 11 people, and so we still need 5 more. It might be 12. I did not actually check the count. I relied on the Post, and they didn't have a post with the updated numbers, and I didn't have a chance to actually go to the email and check to see and count how many are there. So if you want to, please sign up. The slots are disappearing really, really quickly. Moving on forward to the online client stuff. This past week I did add support for setting EW, both loaned EW and regular EW, ECM and ECCM, for multiple units at one time. The idea being that you can do that for like fighters or whatever. I added into, if you use the squadron feature, that's part of the client, you can specify that these fighters are going to be part of this squadron. And after you do that, then you can control the fighters that squadron together. So it makes it easier, because then that also is a way to modify just the EW for those fighters. I'm working on releasing the latest version of the product. I've got all of them done. I got the Unix version, that installer. I got the installer for Windows. That's done. The only one I have not gotten done is the Mac, because I had a problem notarizing it, because Apple being Apple, you have to notarize your product and make sure that it's okay and it checks all the boxes. And I ran into a problem where there is a shared library file which needs to be a signed library file. So I got to see if I can possibly extract the file from the jar file, because that's where it's actually inside like a zip file. And it needs to be, I think, extracted so I can sign it. I'm assuming that's what I'm going to have to do. And then I have to, and hopefully the application will still work after I do that on the Mac anyway. I don't. It's possible that one file is for the dark mode, so it might be that just dark mode is not available on the Mac. I want to get this thing out the door just so that, because I haven't released a new version for the past 2 years, and I really want to get another version with some of these updates that I have been working on, with some of the tweaks that I've been doing. The one thing I did not actually have as part of this release is changing the board settings to be a window versus an actual menu items, because I really want to reduce the number of menu items as much as possible to make it easier and simpler to use. That's the whole idea of that. Moving on forward to the library reports, nothing when it comes to SFU libraries, but I've completed all of my work when it comes to the FedCom library. Every single ship that I have is now part of the library. Actually, not quite. There's a couple that I need to hold off because they're part of the gunboats, which Steve Cole said, do not release these before they release the product. Okay, no problem. I will hold them back. Now that the product's been released, actually, Chris Nuzzi has been so kind as to contact Steve Cole about this, and because he wants to know if we can get the cards in so we can convert them to be available online, and also from Steve Cole when we're allowed to actually make them available for people to play online. I'm not sure when that's going to be. I hope it's sooner than later, but at the same time, I know that Steve Cole needs to make money on the product. The question obviously being is going to be, since at the moment it's completely an product, ebook product. There's no hard product. Does he want us to wait until after he got the hard product out, or maybe 2-3 months, so to let people to buy the product on ebook form and then play it, and then he won't worry about people, kind of stealing, because that's its big concern. We've got to sort of trims down the cards to make it so it's pretty much useless as you copy it and you print it out and try to use it as part of a game. It's pretty useless, because things that aren't there are kind of important ones, like, okay, how many Marines are there? What is the BPV of the ship? What's the damage control of the ship? Things like that are completely removed from the card, as to make it so it's pretty useless to use without the actual the actual purchased product. So just let you know about the numbers. I forgot to tell you about the numbers. Apologize for that. The squadron side ships are now at 635 ships, and the fleet size ships are at 525. at the moment we don't have any of the beta tests. I'm thinking about Omega. Like there's no Omega ships. I'd actually like to have those. I think that'd be kind of cool. But I'm not sure Steve Cole will actually allow us to do that. I might contact Steve Cole about that to see if it might be possible to have the ones that he's already put into the Omega product, the playtest product that he shipped, and any of the captain's log slash no, I was gonna say hailing frequency, but it's not communiques. Any of the Omega ships that were in the, and see if I can have that posted, because to me I think it'd be a great benefit so that people who want to play those ships can play them online and playtest. I think it'd be an excellent reason to allow it for playtesting on, actually online, so more people can get at it and play it. So, with that, that is the news for this week. And it's me, your one and all Paul friends, welcoming you to Starfleet Universe On Call. And tonight, well, it's me. We got Jeff. Hey, Jeff.
Hello.
And Doug. How you doing, Doug?
Hey, I'm here. How are you guys doing tonight?
Doing good, doing good. Oh, okay. I'm actually missed. Oh, dang it. Excuse me. Kitty. No. Get down, please. Oh.
And the Man-Kazan Wars continue.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah.
I wish he would just cleanly just jump up on me, but no, he's in this case he's trying to climb up my leg, and that's not working out so good. But anyway, and I see Dave's actually here. I gotta talk to you about that one. Looks like there's a minor issue with the chat room. That is, it doesn't tell you who's here. If you're talking, yeah, it shows you. But if you're actually just participating, you're listening, but you're not going to be actually, you don't have a mic or anything like that. You just want to listen. They don't show you. It's like, I want to see those people too. Hello. But anyhow, moving onward and forward. Ah, yes, Chris is here. And just to let you know, Chris, I did record the news portion as a video, so we'll see how that whole thing goes with attaching it to the YouTube video that's outputted later tonight, and probably should be available sometime, I don't know, early tomorrow morning. But anyhow, the reason I've called you together this evening, dun dun dun, okay. Oh yeah, I heard about that. Chris is just mentioning about Star Trek Picard. I think I'm not sure if I talked on the podcast. I know I talked about it to the people here about my feeling about Star Trek Picard. I kind of liked the Star Trek Picard the first season. It was nice to see the old people back, and I agree with the critics that said, when it comes to Star Trek Picard, that the first season was it was good romping old time seeing the old characters. Yeah, I agree. It didn't have the biggest plot. It was good. I thought it was overall a good story. Not great, but a good story. Season 2, as soon as I found out that it was go back in time and you have to fix time, Q comes and he messes up the timeline, and because he can. So
what again?
I know. So Picard goes to try to goes and tries to fix it all up and put it back the way it was supposed to, and which I definitely as soon as I saw that after the first episode, I went nah, no thank you, I will pass, because
I mean, that's like trying to rewrite all good things.
agreed. Yeah, because big issue, the biggest issue I always had with um, any show, story, or whatever that tries to do time travel, they do it poorly. In my mind, they don't make it realistic because, yeah, okay. When it comes to sci-fi is great. The one thing great about sci-fi is that you have all these mechanisms, you have all this technology that you come up with. Time is not a technology. Time is time. How it works and how, if you modify things in the past, how that works, how that would happen is, if you think about it hard enough, in my mind, you have to come with only one solution. And that is what, oh geez, I can't remember the show now. It's awful. Because I really like the way they did it. But the
Time tunnel?
no, it was with the C. Forget it. I'll probably remember it later. But what the way they handle time, no, there was a TV show. They had like 4 or 5 seasons. I bought it completely through iTunes. So if I wanted to, I could actually look it up. If people really, not Quantum Leap. It was
almost sounds a little bit like 7 Days.
Nope. Okay, guys, that's it. Since you guys are keep on guessing, I'm going to TV shows and begin with a C. Continuum. That was it.
Just to throw my 2 cents. I'm sure.
Yeah, 32 cents.
But usually when they go to time as a main plot theme, that's kind of like we jumped the shark and ran out of ideas, kind of thing. And
right. Well,
that's just my opinion.
I understood. Continuum is a little different because the whole show is premised on going back in time and then changing how history comes to be. But the one thing I always liked about Continuum was the way they treated time. I think the whoever thought about it really thought well about it, and I think he got it right. Which is, when you go back in time, no matter what, you're modifying time from the instance that you enter that timeline. You go back you can go back in your timeline to that point. Now, after you go there, now depending upon what you do there can be minor changes in the timeline, or there could be major disruptions in the timeline, major modifications to the timeline, i.e., for example, if you went back and somehow saved Hitler from dying, what would happen? Or more to the point, if you could actually convince Hitler so that Germany would actually won, they would have taken over like Europe, and that was now Germany. All of Germany was now considered all of Europe, with current Europe. That kind of thing. That would be a major disruption in the timeline. Doctor Who does it a little differently. Doctor Who talks about time in a way which is interesting, but the whole idea of it is that these aliens are placed into the timeline that aren't supposed to be there to begin with. And Doctor Who's trying to defeat them and help them not to disrupt what is supposed to be the normal time. Now, in my mind, Continuum's got it right in that, as I said, you can have a minor disruption like, a relatively unimportant child dies, meaning a person who doesn't have any offspring, doesn't affect any person dramatically, that could be a minor time disruption, so a minor branch on the timeline, versus someone who is going to be like the parent, like like I said in this case, I said the parent of Hitler. If the parent Hitler dies before Hitler is born, that's going to be a major disruption because of, at that point, World War II doesn't occur. There's a lot of things that do not occur because of that, and that's going to be a major disruption to the timeline. Now, the one thing...
The classic grandfather paradox.
Yeah.
Oh, time travel is just paradox left and right. So.
Agreed there. Agreed. And the thing is, when they ended it, they brought around, everything was saved in the timeline. People, the bad guys were defeated, and they all went kind of went back to the future. Now, the one thing that was at the very end of the show. So at the very end of the show, the person she just wants to get back to see her family. Problem is when she goes back, it's no longer her family. It's another copy of hers family, because she's from a different timeline. But the two main characters of this whole story, they're waiting for this person. They're saying, they kind of have a kind of a bet of whether it's kind of a side note that they say, I didn't think you ever show up, And he said, yeah, and he said, you definitely would show up. And she shows up, and then she finds out that basically she can never go back to her family, and that's because she's from a different timeline. So when she went forward, she didn't go forward to her timeline. She went forward to the way the timeline actually carried out because of the changes that occurred in their history. In the now changed history. So, as I said, that to me that is time done right when it comes to time travel. And overall, I hate go back in time. Now, in theory, the only safe traveling in time will be traveling in time forward, because that should be safe. The only thing that's be unsafe is if you die or something happens to you while you're in the future that you bring back to the past and then therefore you affect the past. So the only truly safe going forward is that you travel to the future and you stay there. That would be the safest of any time travel. So.
It is a deep well to try to draw story ideas from. Sadly, generally speaking, they don't try deep enough. They stay with the shallow.
Oh, agreed. So, but now getting back to the Picard thing that Chris mentioned, which was basically that Star Trek Picard had a weapon, something like the Andromedan Tractor Repulsor beam. I'd have to look at that and see whether that is the case, because of darn it. It's one of the Omega empires that's I was talking to Barry about like 3 weeks ago or something. 3 weeks ago to a month. But that we talked about, and basically the one thing that one of the Omega empires has is they have a It's basically it's a tractor repulsor beam, but it's not a weapon. It's a tractor beam that is designed to rapidly bring you forward or push you away. And, unlike a standard tractor beam the idea is to hold you at a certain distance. Now, you can at the end of the turn. Actually, I think it's the beginning of the turn. I think it's the beginning of the turn after you
Tractor
maintain.
rotation rules.
Yeah, the tractor rotation rules. That you actually can move them. And I thought there was a rule that actually you can bring them closer.
Yeah.
Yeah, it has to do with the tractor rotation rules. The other option is when you're landing shuttlecraft, either a carrier, a casual carrier, or even a ship with its own admin shuttles, you can accelerate the process by using a tractor beam. Although you're not limited to just one hex per turn, you go a little bit faster based on the rules.
Mm-hmm. Now, one thing I did find out, well, this got posted in the chat, and this is why y'all, when it comes to this podcast, come and join us on twitch.tv SFU On Call. And that is this wonderful chat room. And one thing that is mentioned is actually, according to Chris, this week there was basically a displacement device was used. At least, so that's interesting to me because it makes you wonder. It makes you wonder, And that is if possibly that the writers or one of the writers who came up with this plot device has actually knows about Starfleet battles.
I wouldn't be surprised because of the vehemence which Paramount usually comes into play with if they try to do anything with an upgraded type of photon torpedo. Apparently, something in the past has triggered some nasty grams from Paramount's legal team over something that was perceived to be a quantum torpedo from the next gen era.
Mm-hmm. Well, definitely makes me interested in possibly, maybe. Actually, I got.
I remember that, Chris. Sorry, I'm reading a comment on Twitch. Chris said that that the ISC was rebranded as the Xindi during Star Trek Enterprise, the fourth season of Star Trek Enterprise.
Mm-hmm. That season 4. That makes sense because I never got past season 1. Actually, no, I did the first time through. I tried to watch Star Trek Enterprise the second time through, and I'm sure you understand what happened. All of a sudden, you get involved in the time war. It's like, really? Really? You're going to ruin Star Trek?
I wonder how much of that had to do with Scott Bakula being a Quantum Leap alum.
That's probably a lack of ideas on their part, actually.
Yeah,
Not that I would ever say anybody in Hollywood bankrupt on such things, but there it is.
Understood. Yeah, because the thing is, that's one of the things that runs through the whole season. I forget. I don't know if it gets. I think it gets concluded in season 1. Which is. Oh, okay. The temporal Cold War only lasted until season 2. So I'd actually have to somehow, some way, trudge through 2 seasons of that. Ay.
And many people did not. So there you go.
Yeah. Well, it's like what's the I think crap. The latest Star Trek.
Discovery.
Discovery, yeah. I thought it was Discovery, but from a moment there, I was kind of confusing it with um, the precursor when it comes to Star Trek. Star Trek before um, James T. Kirk and
I
all
think you're
that.
thinking.
That's
Discovery. Captain Pike is the captain in Discovery.
yeah. Actually, I like Discovery. What's the one right before that? Oh, there was another Star Trek one.
You're not thinking Below Decks, the animated one, are you?
No, no. I hate it. There was another series. I started watching and I got through maybe 2 episodes and then it's like no. What's that?
Oh, Chris has
Yeah,
got it right. Strange New Worlds is the one with Pike. Discovery was the one before.
right. I like the one with Pike. I do. I do. Huh? They haven't got a new season out yet, have they? Or did they cancel it? Yeah, because I remember that one ended with the first officer being arrested for doing something bad. So, um, yeah, yeah, that one is interesting. I forget another one where it was actually it's after Next Generation. You know, it's in the future past that. I forget. But anyway, doesn't matter. Yeah, it was another one I watched. Like I heard good things about it, and so I watched like 2 or 3 episodes, and I just could not watch it anymore. Just because I couldn't get into it. That was the issue. It wasn't that it was didn't turn me off because of another time thing. Because it's whatever. That just drives me crazy. But anyway. Okay. Oh, okay. Discovery is finished. Chris says the Star Trek Discovery is finished. That would not surprise me. Do. Right. Premiered in 2017. 13. Okay. Oh. Premiered, on All Access. The rest of the 15 first season was streamed weekly on All Access until February. Okay, the 14th episode second season was released on All Access in 2019, and the 13 episode third season ran through the 21st. 13 episode fourth season was released to Paramount Plus November 21 to March 22nd, 2022. The 10 episode fifth season was ordered on January 22. Is expected to be released in 2024. Wow, boy, I'm way behind on that one. I could have sworn it wasn't that long ago. It wasn't 2018. Yeah, that's what Wikipedia says. Wikipedia says that Star Trek Discovery, there's more coming. It's going to be new season. Season 5 is supposed to be in early of next year. Interesting. I didn't even know there was 3 other seasons. So I'll have to take a look see at that. But anyhow, geez, actually get to the topic that I wanted to talk about tonight, but I got sidetracked by Star Trek talk, which in most categories is not such a bad thing, though obviously there is a difference between Starfleet Universe and also Star Trek, because obviously the Starfleet universe is based off the original series, and there's things that are added to it by ADB, adding things like the ISC. I was gonna say the Tholians, but the Tholians were there, and same with the Gorns, even though they both only had single episodes, if I recall correctly. Hydrants, they definitely they added the hydrants. There's one, the Lyrans, the Zinni when it comes to being the part of the original series. I know that the Zinnis were part of the animated series. Do you guys know if when they were part of the animated series, did were they called Zins?
Yes.
Okay. I was just wondering if they might have had a problem.
At the time they were still on good terms with the Niven, with Niven on that. It wasn't until later, after Niven passed away and other things happened, that they kind of lost the rights to keep using it.
Mm-hmm. Dang. Comes down to money, doesn't it? Comes down to freaking money.
That or somebody on the estate committee had an axe to grind for some perceived slight.
Or both.
Or both.
I don't know the history of that, so.
I don't either.
No, me neither. Me neither. And I'm just curious because I know that my understanding was that the Zinnis actually were part of the animated series. That is my understanding. To be honest, I've never watched the animated series. I probably should.
Good.
That might actually be interesting because obviously
there's only 2 seasons, and there's only like two dozen or so episodes altogether. I think 27, 28 maybe.
Mm-hmm.
And they're only about half an hour each. They were written for the half-hour
Right.
Saturday morning cartoon spots.
Right.
There was an episode that had actual Kzinti, and there was a crew member that was of the race. So
yeah, it's worth watching.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, Dave brings up that the stasis box made an appearance in that, where we SFU guys get the plasma F freezer boxes, among other things.
Oh, okay. Okay. From up there, I was thinking it might be talking about the stasis field generators. But
that might be a derivative technology, but this is actually a cargo storage box that got opened up, and the contents of the box were what was being fought over in the episode with the actual Kzinti.
Okay.
Yeah, it's like the stuff from the Niven series. One of the things from what was it, the Elders, the ancient race or something like that.
Holy cow.
That's a whole other, rabbit. And I think you wanted to talk about fighters tonight or something like that.
Yes, I did. Yes, I did. I got sucked down this rabbit hole for a little bit longer than I had.
Here, let me put on my pirate hat and hijack your talk for a bit. No, go ahead. Fighters. Was it FedCom fighters you wanted to talk about, or was it SFB fighters, or both?
I say SFB fighters because of the FedCom fighters. Don't get me started on the FedCom fighters. The reason I say that is because I truly think that the FedCom fighters. I'm not sure if ADB will actually ever release them, but if they don't release them, I'm just gonna be because as you guys know, I had to write up a tactics article on how to fight a scenario where basically one of the Klingons had a carrier, when we created our battle groups, and the Klingon, his battle group, he picked one with fighters. So he's picking a non-released product that I have to fight against. So it's like, oh, yeah, thank you very much. And
It does
overall,
seem a little less than cricket.
yeah. Well, I forget the guy's name. I wanted to say Dale, but I don't think it was Dale. I think it was Dell. I think it was. He checked with Steve Petrick to make sure this is okay. Can I do this? And it's valid. It's legal. Okay, use it. It's like, okay, fine. So I created my fleet with my Andromedans, and which actually overall I think that I chose well when it comes to my fleet because of the defensive wise. It's basically the same as the Cobra, and it's cheaper. Now, offensive wise, it doesn't have as much offensive punch, but because of the defense, it takes a lot more for him to beat up on. Takes a lot more firepower to actually kill my squadron, because I have more defense overall. Obviously, that having not as much offense has an effect too, because that means it takes me longer to kill him, which might just offset that whole issue. But anyhow, SFB tactics, fighters tactics, is something I don't think I've ever talked about in any of my particular podcasts, which is using fighters when it comes to Starfleet battles. Obviously, there have been let's say many tactical articles written about fighters, but obviously, if you want to, you can just skip what I'm going to talk about and go pick up the SFB tactics manual, because they definitely talk about fighters in that. And of course, you can't have fighters without carriers. You can't have carriers in SFB, that is, without escorts, because obviously the biggest issue that fighters have is that they're fighters. And I remember one of those things that was mentioned in the tactics manual that I read the article. And one of the things that it was either the tactics manual or just a little tactics little blurb that it was included in one of the captain's logs. And that was that when you launch the fighters, from the carriers, not from the escorts, but from the carriers themselves, the escorts would appreciate it if you don't fly the fighters right through the escorts. Basically, the reason being to mention that was that if you bring your fighters, which are they take anywhere between like 10 to 15 points to kill. I mean, dead. If you fly them through the escorts, those escorts are going to die. Why? Because they're going to say, hey, if we kill this escort, we can wipe out, or at least cripple all of these fighters in one shot. It's like the one thing that they mentioned was like their escort captains will appreciate it if you don't do that.
SNIDS. Sudden instant escort death syndrome.
Yeah. Yep. Which always makes me wonder about, because the whole thing about escorts, what escorts are supposed to do, at least overall, their goal is to protect the carriers, and in some cases have it so that escorts can also you can land the fighters on the escorts also, which obviously would be good in a combat situation if you want to be able to more quickly reload your fighters. And since escorts,
it only works for the drone races, though. It's been brought up time and time again that if you're going to use disruptor charges, photon charges, or any other kind of heavy weapon charge, escorts don't have the facilities to reload them. So it's one of those things that some races get better uses, or some empires get better uses out of than others. The downside to it is that the carrier and the escorts have to be spread out far enough that SNIDS isn't going to turn around and be devastating if you can bring it about. But at the same time, they have to keep their fields of fire overlapping so that they can perform their primary function, and that is to deal with the oncoming wave of drones, plasma, or other fighters that the other fellow's going to send at you first.
Right. Yeah, because that's what the escorts are they're designed to do. They're supposed to be there to protect the carriers, and against, as you just pointed out, all those kinds of attacks. Oh.
I mean, it comes down to it. The carriers end up doing. Ouch.
Yeah. You read that too, Jeff?
Yeah, I just saw that. Yeah, I just saw that too.
Yeah. Oh, Jeff.
Comes down to it.
Jeff, before you continue on, I need to read this to anyone who's not as part of the chat room, which is Dave mentioned that if 6 Rhino fighters let those 6 Plasma Fs at the same ship, they don't need to reload. So it's like, yeah, good point. Continue.
Yeah. It's a situation like that. I do believe the escort's suddenly going to have another shuttle box available for fighter work when the Weasel is away.
Yeah.
If they've even got one.
Mm-hmm. Well, that's the one.
That's evil, Dave. That's evil.
I like that.
Oh, agreed. Now, obviously, as you pointed out, and with SFB, if that happens to a person with a ship, assuming that the ship doesn't actually do an ED and then launch a Weasel, yeah, that ship will no longer be there. Or at least it'll be can be quite a bit damaged. Yes.
You could also outrun them too. So.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah.
That's an option.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but a broken formation is almost as much value as a destroyed escort.
I agree.
It's all circumstance.
Oh yeah.
Totally understood. Yep. And that's I agree. That's one of those things when it comes to fighters. That is plasmas. If they get in close enough, and they launch those plasmas, they're going to be a bigger deterrent, a bigger source of mobile terrain than drones. Overall,
the downside to it is that once you've fired your first salvo, you're going to end up having to play the defensive a while you scavenge the power to reload all of the fighter boxes in your carrier's main shuttle.
Yeah. That's one thing I gotta read up on those rules. It's been a while. Because if I recall correctly, and it's many years, and you please correct me if I'm wrong. That is, my understanding is that at the beginning of a scenario, if you're starting with weapon status 3, your boxes, for reloading the fighters are already loaded, and so are the fighters. Yes. The fighters are already also no.
only your alert 5 can have a full loadout. Everything else has everything in the racks ready to start loading.
Ah.
So it depends on what your alert force is. Now, some of the carriers have a larger alert force than others. I think most of the Hydron carriers are allowed to have stinger charges on more of their fighters or more of their stingers armed at the beginning of a scenario under weapon status 3. But that gets down into the details. What it amounts to is that even if even if you're allowed to have the fighters armed, it's either you've got a charge in the weapon box or you have a charge on the fighter. You don't have both.
Understood. Ah, jeez, and I'll just start thinking about the feds, because Lord knows, feds and one of the most expensive shuttle in existence on the in SFB, the SWAC shuttle, which is
The AWACS.
the AWACS. Thank you. Nasty buggers.
Yeah, and they are fire magnets of the first order.
Yep. Which is why they're so darn expensive, and of course, if you launch one of those things, you better have something to protect it, because dang man, if I was anybody, I'd be targeting those suckers and just freaking blowing it up the high heaven.
Yeah, about the only about you know about they're about the only non-ship asset in the game that draws more fire than a multi-role shuttle.
True, true. Yeah, but yeah, I think that's one thing that obviously you pointed out, and you have to we have to remind ourselves of, which is the disparity between drone fighters and heavy weapon fighters. Whether it's or even yeah, I consider a Plasma F fighter is a heavy weapon fighter. Just like a disruptor fighter or a photon like an A-10.
I do believe that the Romulans do have some light fighters, so to speak, that use railed plasma D cartridges that work similar to drones for purposes of reloading. But
Oh yeah.
aside from that, um, you're right. It's generally an either or across the galaxy.
Hmm. Yeah, because usually the ones um, for the Romulans when it comes, or even the Gorns, I think mainly the Romulans, because the Gorns basically got the fighters from the feds. Not exactly thrilled about that idea. But on the Romulans, their Plasma D fighters are basically superiority fighters. The idea is they will dogfight the other fighters.
As a matter of fact, the Plasma D is the plasma race's equivalent of the Type 6 dogfight drone because it has a very similar weapons capability.
Yep, yep. And that actually brings up a good question for you, Jeff, because I know Doug has never experienced this. Which is, have you ever played a scenario where the actual fighters got into a dogfight?
I have not. The only major engagement I ever got into that had any kind of fighters at all was kind of a kind of a nothing burger in the in the final analysis, we spent 4 turns putting almost 270 drones on the map headed towards
Oh,
the opposing force, and the opposing force just drug his heels and let time expire in the real world. He didn't know how to deal with it, so he just said, we were looking at food, right? Can I get anybody another beer?
Yeah, actually, I did that in at Fort Hood when I was playing pretty actively.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, it's kind of a nothing burger. It's like, why bother?
Mm-hmm.
Like, in general, you're just better off using them against ships and reloading them.
Oh, understood. But but as I pointed out, the Varmins, the plasmodiesel, those mainly are supposed to be there to defend against the heavy weapon fighters. Is the whole idea.
When if you can, where the dogfight rules shine are when your fighters and their fighters cross paths.
Right.
You can tie them up. You can tie their fighters up in dogfights, or they can tie yours up in dogfights.
Mm-hmm.
Your superiority fighters can tie up their heavy fighters, forcing them to send more superiority fighters to help defend their heavy fighters, and then you get these giant fur balls that basically work on the dogfight interface, which occurs every 8 impulses. Not to mention the fact that, yes, you can fire into a dogfight on fighters, but it causes negatives to your fighters, and it turns into a math black hole that most players don't really care to get into. And let's face it, when you've got fighters on the map, you probably, on both sides, you probably also have tons of seeking weapons, and that's a lot of administrivia, impulse to impulse.
Agreed. Which is
bomb them all.
Yeah.
Which is bomb the whole area. Well, yes, my escort exploded after dropping the T-bombs out there. Oh well, they're all gone now.
Oi. Agreed.
Oh, yes. These guys will know their own.
Yeah, that's when playing online, i.e., in electronic form, makes it a heck of a lot easier to deal with that many drones.
Yes, it does.
That's something I've never ever tried with an online client at all. Maybe I'll try it one of these times just to see what it feels like. Which is,
since you're talking about running experiments on the online client, you really ought to make it at least a game mode where one person can hot seat both sides and not have the system throw fits, so that you could game some of this out on your own just to see what a fighter could do against a similar force without another human being to bounce off of.
mm-hmm.
Like maybe have faction controls, so you can say, okay, this Fed carrier and these fighters are faction A, and the Klingon carrier and those fighters are faction B, even though there's only one player in the room.
Right. That's an interesting idea.
Yeah, allow some solo play like that.
No, agreed. The big thing is simplify solo play. Yeah, agreed. What was it? Dang it. I did something like that as part of the client. Because I thought I added an ability to color code the ships. Something along those lines.
You actually pull the client up twice and run it separately and use that to play against yourself.
I don't know how easy that would work, seeing as how you're still tied to the same login.
Right. You have to have 2 separate logins. I can have 2 separate logins because I'm the owner, so I can have 2 accounts.
Yeah.
Okay. I'm just gonna bring this up real quick.
Yes, yes. Go ahead. Keep grinning. We all know rank hath its privileges.
I'm sorry. I'm the owner.
It's your toy. You can play with it however you want.
Yes, I do. Okay, it's like that, and I could have sworn I could do this, and then piece info options. Da, 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 da. No, I thought there was. Of course, there's groups. I don't really think groups now. I want to add. I could have sworn I did something like that. Can't find it at the moment. I can do. I can. Have it, right. Yeah, that's what I thought. And that will I have to have it covered. Yeah. Don't want to have it covered. Oh, that's it. I stripe color. That's it. So it's so the ship can you can add a stripe to certain ships. You can change, and that can define what group you're part of. That was the whole idea. Something like this, where I go to options, go stripe color, and you can change the color that the stripe on the actual counter. And you can see it be black, or black's a very bad one for black counters. And white's pretty bad too. How about magenta? So you can click drag. Yay! And you can blow it up, shrink it. Yay! So, yeah, I had one complaint that somebody actually prefers the scrolling to actually scroll up and down like this. I can understand that, but I got it so you can, if you click on the place which is not a piece, it will actually drag the board. So, but anyhow, but so obviously what you're thinking about, Jeff, is along the lines of separating it out so that you can actually see the EAs are broken up into individual players, quote unquote. So it would be easier to handle in that case.
Well, I was thinking like if you've got Squadron A and Squadron B, and if they're not necessarily tied to players when they start, you got, okay, Squadron A has their EA and their SSDs, Squadron B has their EAs and their SSDs, and if you end up only having one player running both squadrons, they're kept separate the way they need to be. But you still, you don't have to end up building Squadron A with both sides of the fight, and then you turn around and have to do things like click off the "Are you sure" boxes every time you want to fire weapons on your side.
I have to check that for SFB because I know that's one thing I added for FedCom, which was that if you are playing a solo, you can there's a box when it comes to targets, and you say, yeah, I want all targets. In other words, I want to be able to.
That's there in SFB too, but the thing is that if you select your own target, there's I haven't done it in a while, but there's an interaction with targeting your own ships that it requires extra steps.
Okay. I believe it's been a while since I've looked at that code. I know with FedCom, no, you just say, okay, I'm targeting this and fire.
Yeah.
Which is the whole idea of that is obviously to encourage solo play. But yeah, I think more to the point of what I was wanting to look at was the ability to. I know this will take me quite a bit of work, and I probably have to. What I would do is do the work, save the game, so I have this for any time I want to do it again, and load up all these ships, and then have all these ships launch their drones, and see how I can handle them using the client, i.e., target the client in that respect, at the very least, with the ability to handle a lot of drones. I know that one of the ways of solving the problem is, and Lord knows, I had this idea for it, and some people really did not like it, which was the whole idea of having the movement of the drones be automated. Because people, when it comes to tournament play, they don't want that, because they don't want people to actually have the ability to let the computer move for them. It's like,
It comes into the leading the target versus the stern chase. It does actually work out to a different path.
agreed. But people usually, the reason why they have such an issue with it is that they feel like they're giving people who don't know how to move seeking weapons properly a leg up. Which to a certain degree it probably would be, but and that's something I can do. I actually can have it so that it's only available as part of SFB or in FedCom and not part of the SFB tournament plugin. I can remove that as an option that's available for people. So
Another option, if the idea I hit you with a little while back about putting a bug up ahead of a ship before their turn mode is satisfied, actually put it on the map.
yeah.
You could do something similar. You could do something similar with that. If you know what the target is and you know where the seeking weapon is, you could, in theory, filter out which of the seeking weapons movement options are legal in that context and highlight those hexes when it comes time to move that seeking weapon.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's possible.
And that might help speed up seeking weapon play, particularly with novice players as they're looking at, okay, this is where my target is. This is where my seeking weapon is. I've got 4 drones sticking out here. Where can they go? And having just that one little layer of assistance might be of help.
Understood. I'm sorry. I'm reading Chris Newsy, and so of course with auto movement you can't do Zimbars. David Zimbar, dipsy doodle. I forget what the dipsy doodle is, but my guess is the ability to basically launch a drone and have it so that it it kind of misses the target and just goes around. That's what it sounds like to me. But anyhow, I think we will leave it at that. Didn't talk about fighters all that much, a little bit there. Talked more about the client and Star Trek than anything else. But anyhow, Jeff, it's definitely been a pleasure. You have a good night.
Yep, it's been fun. Thank you. Good night, everybody.
Right.
See
Doug?
ya. Have a good one.
You too. So we're gonna wrap it up there. Had some nice discussion about fighters. Not much as much tactics as I would have wanted to, but we got sidetracked. Different things, and Lord knows the client's on my mind. Big surprise there. And had a nice little chat about different Star Treks and sci-fi all together. Well, it's related to a certain degree. But anyhow, with that, I am Paul Franz, and I bid you a good night.